combining strengths. You don't have to sell the country. You don't have to even merge it. But you can create a union where you put together the things that matter, a common currency, a common passport, free-flowing trade across the border, particularly in energy. And think about what that means. Right now, the U.S. grid is tapped out. You can't find a gigawatt of electrical power. There's unlimited power in Canada. And even Eric Schmidt said that at Google because they're concerned about building data centers. All of these opportunities exist. Now, I think this is a great idea, and I think the potential is massive, and the opportunity is huge. And I think at the end of the day, Canadians and Americans, their DNA is the same in terms of what they believe in, freedom. They fought in multiple wars together. I say let's make this happen one way or another and end up the strongest entity on earth. I'm worried about China. I really am. I think we're in the beginning of a long economic war. And if we're stronger and protecting the northern border and really making it hell for them around the world with our philosophy of freedom and commerce and strength, that's a good thing.
You heard from Kevin O'Leary what he thinks about this idea of having a North American Union. As an investor, he actually sees this as a very good thing. He thinks, well, why don't we just tap into the natural resources that they have in Canada? Let's get together and we wouldn't have to necessarily sell Canada, but basically just form a union. He also mentioned that he thinks a common currency would be a helpful thing. Now, what I found interesting in my research is what Brother Gary Stearman from Prophecy Watchers said about this. Now, listen to what he said about the 10 kings, or who would these 10 kings be? And listen, remember what Kevin O'Leary just said, okay? Quote, "We have seen how clearly it is illustrated in both Daniel and Revelation that the Antichrist's rise to power will initially take place with the backing of horns, which are clearly described as 10 kings. Initially, see Revelation 17, verse 2. They are practically unknown. They have no kingdoms. But during a very short period of time, they share their power with the Antichrist. As close as we must be to all these specific details, it is probable that they are alive today." And I would have to agree with Brother Gary there. They will be the oligarchs, tech giants, bankers, investors. We just heard from an investor in Kevin O'Leary. And super scientists who are totally invested in a godless order of global powers. Let me read that again. They would be the oligarchs, tech giants, bankers, investors, and super scientists who are totally invested in a godless order of global powers. Some of them might even be the leaders of nations, although that might not be the case, Gary says. Without referring to any of them by name, just think of the trillionaires of the digital world who are publicly linked to a new world or a new order of science, genetic transformation, digitized global politics, and any variety of technologies. They are now hailed as the ones who will save the world through their new methodologies. What has Donald Trump recently promised us? That we are entering the golden age. We are entering the golden age of America. Who has Donald Trump surrounded himself with? Guys like his vice president, J.D. Vance, who is also linked up with Peter Thiel, who is a tech giant, someone who's going to be running the AI, the artificial intelligence division of the White House, something that has never been created before until this current administration, the artificial intelligence division of the White House. Peter Thiel, connected to J.D. Vance, connected to Donald Trump. We also see Elon Musk, who has his Space Force and who also has a lot to do with AI and brain chips. A lot of people, when we voted for Donald Trump, it was the best decision because that's the best thing that we could have possibly did. But I don't think a lot of believers knew the prophetic significance of Trump getting into office beyond Israel. Like, we know he supports Israel. We know he'll do whatever he needs to do to protect Israel. He has an alliance with Netanyahu. However, we did not know the people that he surrounded himself with, who these people are, and how they're going to be pushing us to a technocratic world order. So we have to be thinking about that. Donald Trump did not back the Bitcoin years ago. He was against Bitcoin. But now that Bitcoin is surging, he is backing it. And he's also created a division in the White House to back this digital monetary system in Bitcoin. Okay, so we see all the prophetic dots lining up.
Through customs unions, confederation, regionalism, until ultimately the larger units coalesce under a global umbrella. And that's exactly what they're doing, folks. If you go back and watch the recent episode we did on the regionalization strategy that Klaus Schwab outlines as part of the Great Reset, and Henry Kissinger talked about this in his book World Order that was released almost a decade ago now. He says the contemporary quest for world order will require a coherent strategy to establish a concept of order within the various regions, and then to relate these regional orders to one another. In other words, as Henry Kissinger points out, he was a big NAFTA booster, by the way. He said it was the most creative step toward a new world order that he had seen yet. He said that if you want to get this world order, the strategy, the concept that you have to do is you got to build regional orders. In other words, regional governments like the African Union, like the North American Union, the European Union, and then figure out ways to link these to each other. This is exactly what they're working on right now, folks, but you won't hear about it in the fake media. We actually got some smoking gun documents proving that even during the Bush administration, they were working on this. A secret U.S. embassy cable from 2005 that was released by WikiLeaks gives the whole plan away. They talk about how North American governments are working to integrate the continent. They talk about using NAFTA and more to bring about even a currency union. They talk about a North American currency. This document was signed by then American Ambassador to Canada, Paul Cellucci, and he outlines, among other things, the best way to peddle this to policymakers, the best way to sell this to the public. Talks about how you get around national constitutions and even an eventual monetary union, with former Mexican President Vicente Fox has talked about many times. This cable talks about the supposed benefits of merging the countries. It gives the talking points and what people should be stressing in the efforts to promote further integration. He says their research leads them to conclude that it ought to be focused on security and prosperity, because those are things that people can identify with and that don't sound very threatening.